Okay, so here's the main topic for today. Daddy-o said I ain't gonna win anyway. Yeah, you know what I just realized? Man, what a day. I knew this was gonna happen as soon as we clicked the button today. No coffee. Guess I'm having iced coffee after the show today. Okay, where do we begin here? Because as I talked about, today's show is going to be talking about unlocking the future potential with Bitcoin. Because I want people to start thinking about it more than just a currency, more than just an investment, more than just something that you're going to buy, you're going to get to a point and you're going to retire. We need to change our mind out of that. So I'm going to start running through things here. Some of them I might elaborate further on to, but some of them might be a little bit quicker depending on how the time frame is here. So we'll start with this one because this is the most obvious one, which is purchasing power. Like I said, this is a long list. I'm going to go through everything that I could think of in terms of why holding Bitcoin today is going to unlock such an abundant future for you. That's the key here, not just financially, but in every aspect of your life. So the first one is purchasing power for big items. So I want you to start doing this with everything that you have in life, whatever you want to buy, whether that's a new vehicle, a new house, a new roof, a new deck, a new hot tub, a trip with your dad, new set of golf clubs. I want you to start doing this with every aspect of it, because obviously if you think about that, these are all the things you want, but you're probably not in a position to purchase all of those things today. And I could be wrong. There might be some extremely wealthy people watching the show, but for the average person, for the average Joe, you can't afford all that right now, not even close. And the thing that you're not going to do is save enough every month to put into a savings account and eventually get a down payment in fiat. It's never happening. So just take that thought out of your mind, because it's never going to happen again in our history. You have to shift that. So you should be thinking about Bitcoin funds. So let's say that you want a new set of golf clubs. You say, okay, in a couple of years from now, this is what the Bitcoin price might be worth. This is what the clubs will probably cost. This is how much I'm going to need. And then once it gets to that point in purchasing power, you buy it. So you're playing a very long game here. You're being very patient. You're being very responsible, financially responsible. You put it into a fund, and then when that fund has enough purchasing power, you buy the new set of golf clubs. You don't go into debt. You don't take away from your grocery money or your rent money. You wait until you have enough purchasing power to buy the golf clubs. So that's a small example, but think about like land. You want to buy some land in 20 years? Set up a fund, land fund with Bitcoin. Why not? Because you have to think about in that time after 20 years into this thing, think about how valuable Bitcoin is going to be, not only dollar sign wise, but like how much people are going to want it. You have to keep that in mind. The demand for Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, everything's going to go up, but you have to think about the demand here for Bitcoin. So purchasing power, I think I've talked about that enough on the show, but it is worth mentioning for sure. The second one here is leverage for AI. I've been watching some shows lately, then they talk about the new one-person companies that are going to be forming because of AI. In the past, if you wanted to launch your own business or start your own company, you needed to hire a bunch of people. Hair on my nose. You need to hire a bunch of people to do the admin stuff, to do the bookkeeping, to do your marketing, to do your sales, to do all this kind of stuff, your legal team, everything. You need to have these people on staff. You don't have to do that anymore. The technology is already there where you don't have to do that anymore. So there's going to be all these one-person companies popping up. And so who are you going to be paying? AI. What's the AI going to be accepting for payment? Bitcoin. Why? Because an AI can't get a bank account. You can't create an AI. They can't KYC themselves to get a bank account. So where's that money going to go to? If I'm paying an AI, that money has to go somewhere. Where's it going to? If an AI cannot get a bank account, how am I going to pay the AI? we're still in the transition phase where humans are still very much in control of the AI, so they have it redirected to their bank account. And that might be the case in the future too. But if you see past that, if you see past this transition point that we're in right now, it's going to be AI or it's going to be Bitcoin that AI is accepting. So you're going to be growing your business. You're going to be saving yourself time. Those are the skills that you should be accumulating right now, along with Bitcoin, but how to properly utilize AI, because it's not going to only unlock a bunch of your financial freedom, but it's going to unlock a bunch of your time. Those two things are the key with the AI. So start thinking about that. And the other thing too there with that is that, let's say that plays out like I talked about, and we're paying AIs in Bitcoin in the future, and they're doing the majority of your work for your business, your one-person business. You buy Bitcoin today, knowing that you're going to be using that for leverage in the future to pay for your AI team, your staff of AIs. Think about how much less you're going to pay for it now compared to when that plays out, in terms of how much Bitcoin you can purchase now versus how much Bitcoin you'll be able to purchase then. And that's kind of going to be the theme throughout all of these, for the most part, is really thinking about how much future leverage you're buying now, you're earning now, you're converting from fiat into Bitcoin now, how much future leverage that's going to create for you in the future. So that's number two. Number three, kind of going along those lines, is you're going to be paying much lower transaction fees because you're here now. So think about the old system and the new system that we're moving into. The old system, if you want to send money, if you want to send an e-transfer here in Canada, it costs you $1.50. If you want to hold a bank account, you pay a bank fee every month. If you want to take out a loan, you pay an interest rate. You pay all these fees, these hidden fees. You have insurance on that a lot of people don't even realize that they're paying. So those are the transaction fees in the current system that we live in. The transaction fees in the future system that we're living in is going to be very similar. We look at the mempool fees every day, how much it costs to send Bitcoin. You have to be thinking about that, because if, let's say that it costs you 5,000 sats to send a Bitcoin transaction in the future, whether you're buying a house, whether you're paying your employees, whatever that may be, if that costs you 5,000 sats in the future, think about 5,000 sats today, what that costs you. What is it? $3, $3 worth of fiat, or is it even that? Or $5,000 in the future, whatever that, you know what I mean? Like, just think about the difference between buying those sats now and holding them versus having to pay for those in the future. Like, the people who show up late to this are going to be paying a lot, but it's a free market too. It's supply and demand for the Bitcoin block space. So it's going to come a point where there's only a certain amount of people and a certain amount of organizations who can actually who can afford to send a Bitcoin transaction. But that's just one part of it, because the other part of it is the Lightning network. So we're going to assume that most people in 10 years from now are going to be using Lightning and not Layer 1. But even today, like when I sent my Bitcoin from my MiniBits wallet to my Phoenix wallet, it still cost me 8 sats. And 8 sats today is a fraction of a penny. 8 sats in the future is going to be the equivalent of a couple of dollars, the equivalent of a transaction fee to send an e-transfer. That's kind of the overlap here in the transition that we're going through that I really wanted to point out, is that if you have 8 sats today and that's what it costs you to send a transaction, because that's all Bitcoin is, it's just a ledger of transactions. So if it costs you 8 cents today and that costs you a fraction of a penny in fiat, in 10 years from now, it's going to cost you a lot more to send any transaction. So if you can accumulate the Bitcoin now, that's the future leverage that you're going to be unlocking with AI, with transaction fees, and with everything else we're about to talk about here. So the second part, this is number 4, I guess. Sorry. Hopefully I don't have any numbers by these. So this is all going off my immediate memory. But I before we go any further here, I want to give a shout out to My Path to Fire for zapping 121 sats for the open source development fund today. We got a nice little pot growing here. We got 9.42 thousand sats for the open source. That's pretty good. Pretty hot start. And we got Brendan, I see here too. Been too long. Yeah, it has been a while, Brendan. Good to see you, though. It's good to see you. Okay, next part here. Sorry, I can't really keep up too much in the chat, but if you have something that you really want to discuss, throw a zap with it for the Open Sats Fund, and it highlights the comment there. So the fourth one here is the ability to retain your voice. And this is a big one. This is a big one. Because let's say that you're, whatever country you're in, let's say you're in Venezuela, or in this recent happenings here, let's say you're in Venezuela and you make a post. I mean, this is a little bit extreme compared to where we are today, but we're not too far off of that. If we continue down this path, we're not too far off of that. So let's say that you made a post about the government on Twitter or on Nostr or wherever that is, or you wrote a newspaper article, you wrote into the editor saying that the dictator in Venezuela didn't actually win the election. What would happen there? You'd either be jailed, they might freeze your bank accounts. The easiest thing for them to do without any sort of work is to freeze your bank accounts. The hardest thing that they could do is actually physically come to your house and arrest you, which they could. But you're still retaining your voice there, because the easiest thing, and if everybody's doing this, they can't go to everybody's houses, right? You have to keep that in mind. You're not the only person who feels the way you do in the world right now. So the ability to retain your voice, the ability to stop them from closing your bank account, because they could. If I didn't have any Bitcoin and I wanted to say something about my Liberal government here in Canada, they could easily, from Ottawa, freeze my bank account. And I would be totally screwed. I wouldn't be able to pay my rent or my mortgage or pay for the food. That's a big deal. They cut your bank account off, you're pretty much fucked. And they can do that from Ottawa. What they can't do is visit my house from Ottawa. So that's what Bitcoin does. They have to come to your house and physically take it from you. And even with that, if you do it properly, you can set it up in a way where they can't actually do that. You memorize it or you put it in a place they'll never find. They can do whatever they want to you, but they're not going to get your Bitcoin. So that's a big deal. The ability to retain your voice, the freedom of speech, Bitcoin unlocks that. It takes away the ability for them to freeze your bank accounts. That's a big deal. I mean, we saw it happen here in Canada with the trucker protest, the freedom convoy. So, I mean, I said Venezuela is not too far off, or we're too far away from that, but are we? You're also unaffected. Number 5 is you're unaffected by incompetent governments. So if you're living in a Bitcoin world on a Bitcoin standard and you're saving all of your life's energy in Bitcoin, the government could send as much money as they want to Ukraine. The government could pay for as many gender studies as they want in Pakistan. You're completely unaffected by it. When you're living in that system, though, and they do that, they create more debt, they print new dollars. Every time they do that, the value of your dollar, your currency, goes down. And they do not have the ability to do that with Bitcoin. They cannot print Bitcoin. So if you're holding your wealth in Bitcoin, you're completely unaffected by incompetent and corrupt governments. Number 6 here is that no amounts are withheld in Bitcoin. And the example that I wanted to share here is with YouTube and Zap.stream. So with YouTube, now that I had 1,000 subscribers, I can monetize it. So I get like $6 a month from YouTube. It feels like it. But the thing about that is I had to put in my tax information. And every time YouTube wants to make a payment from me, they automatically withhold 25% to send to the government, without even, it doesn't even touch my bank account. It goes from YouTube to the government. That's crazy. And if you're an employee, you're working 9-to-5 job still, that's the kind of stuff that you deal with every single paycheck. The money does not even go into your bank account. They don't even allow you to have enough responsibility to manage that yourself. They just take it from you. So with Bitcoin, nothing is withheld. So I'm using the comparison of YouTube and Zap.stream. YouTube, every time they make a payment to me, 25% comes off. Right off the hop, 25%. I mean, if you file your taxes, you get that back plus whatever tax you pay. I mean, I get it. But the fact is that they're just taking it from you without even touching your bank account. With Zap.stream, there's nobody there. My Path to Fire zaps me 121 sats. Zap.stream is not taking 25% of that. They're not sending any amounts to the government. Nothing in Bitcoin is withheld. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. If you decide that you want to claim it as income, you can pay taxes on that. If you don't, well, that's your choice. But it's still your choice. That's the thing. Because when you have governments like we have now, and you don't necessarily agree with the things that they're doing, and they're not using your money, your tax money, in the best way, and they're almost harming they are harming their citizens more than they're helping them, then if you had the option to not pay tax to that government, you should have that option. And with Bitcoin, you do. So nothing is withheld in Bitcoin. The seventh one or eighth one, I'm not even sure which one this one is, but it's very attractive to banks and lending. And they don't know that yet, but it's going to be very attractive to banks and lending. And the reason for that is because if you compare two things, and I like comparing things from our current system to this new system. But let's say that you wanted to go to the bank and get a loan, whatever that is. You want to go buy a new car. You need it for a new, I don't know, what do people take loans for? A new piece of equipment for your business. You want to go to the bank, you take a loan. What do they need? They need some sort of security to know that if you stop making your payments, they can seize that asset from you. Okay. So let me go a little bit further with that. With global demand, the thing that people have used most for collateral and security through the years is land or another house or a piece of equipment, whatever that is. So think about it from the bank's perspective here. You put this asset up as security, a piece of land here locally. That's your security. Pretty good. I mean, land goes up in value because it's a fixed asset. It's going to go up forever, just like Bitcoin. But think about it from the bank's perspective here. If you stop making your payments on your loan, they come and take your land. Think about the trouble that they have to go through to get their money back. They have to find a buyer first in a small local market. Here, there's not many people who want land here. I mean, there's lots of farmland here. Oh, I hear Arnie out there. Hey, buddy. I don't want to lock out Arnie. Where is he? He's sleeping. So with that, like they're going to have to find a local buyer. They're going to have to hire a lawyer, realtor on both sides. Realtor is going to get 6% of that transaction. They have to go through all these steps because it's such a local, small market that it's more difficult for them. And they might not get the value that it's worth because they want to sell it. They want to unload it as fast as they can. So that's the gold standard of security here is land. But compare that to Bitcoin now. If you stop making your payments on your loan and you have Bitcoin as your security, they could turn around and sell that Bitcoin and recoup their investment in 5 minutes. They don't need a lawyer. They don't need a realtor. They don't need to find a local buyer for it. They don't have to worry about it being worth less than it's actually worth because they're trying to sell it that fast. You're selling it to a global market, has global demand instantly. You don't need anybody else in there. So from the bank's perspective, that's very attractive. And it's verifiable too. They don't have to go out to your property every year to make sure that, I don't know, what could happen to a property to affect it, or a house or a vehicle. They don't have to go to your physical location to see if this combine that you have as security still exists. And you would be amazed by how many people do that, because I worked as an accountant for 10 years. And part of the whole process of verifying information is that you have to physically go there and look at it. And believe it or not, there was a company here in this area who said that they had a bunch of inventory on their lot, and that's what they were taking on debt with. And when we actually went to look at their lot, none of the equipment was there. So they had been using this millions of dollars worth of inventory as collateral for financing to get more money to continue operations. And none of those assets were on the property. So with Bitcoin, from a bank's perspective, they can verify it instantly. They'll probably hold one key to your Bitcoin. So they can go into mempool.space, they copy and paste your Bitcoin address. They can verify that in a second. Like, that's a big deal. I hope I'm not trying to, or I hope I'm getting the message through here appropriately, but that is a very big deal for the banks, for the auditors, and very attractive to banks. And when you're attractive to banks, you can do whatever the heck you want. You can go into the bank and say, hey, here's some of my Bitcoin. I put 2 million sats into this wallet. You can hold the key to it. I want some money. I'm going to go buy a new truck. You're not going to sell your Bitcoin. You're just going to take out money against it. And the banks will want Bitcoin deposits. If you understand where this whole thing is moving to, do you think that a bank in 10 years from now would rather have $1 billion in cash or 5 Bitcoin on their balance sheet? Like, they're going to want you to deposit your Bitcoin there. That's what they want now. They want people to deposit so they can lend out more money. And with Bitcoin, they're going to be able to do that in a much more effective way. The next one here is the ability to interact on a global scale. And I think that we kind of take it for granted here in Canada and the US. But for people in other countries, the ability to interact with other people online, hire people from any other country on earth. You don't have to worry about their tax system, their bank accounts. There's no one in between there, between you and them. If I wanted to hire somebody to design shirts for me anywhere in the world now, I can do that with Bitcoin. I could not do that before with fiat. And if I could, it would be very difficult. And this is from me in Canada here. So if you're somebody in one of those other countries who doesn't have access to the same financial system that we do, then Bitcoin is even more of a game changer. And even like on Nostr, you could, if you're in any country right now, this was not possible 5 years ago. If you're in any country now and you have a valuable skill that you can offer to other people, you can sell that now to anybody on earth. You could not do that before. Well, you could set up a Nostr account today. You could start sharing your information. You could start helping people on there, and they can send you Bitcoin instantly without anybody in between there. You don't need a bank account. You don't need to start a business. You don't have to pay $100 a month to your provincial government to run a business. You just set up an NPUB and an NSEC, your public key and your private key. You set up a pair, easy to do, and you can start adding value to people's lives, and they can pay you back for it in Bitcoin. You don't have to convert your fiat even. You can go to work. You don't have to convert. You can pay your groceries. You can pay your rent with that. But at night and in the morning, you want to start making Bitcoin. You just get onto Nostr. Anybody on earth can do that. That's pretty powerful. The next one here is that it's creating a brand new industry and more. So the first thing I think of when I say that is that, people think of Bitcoin education as a new industry. It's really not. But if you look further into that, you look at what Barefoot's doing and what he's talking about there. Bob Burnett, I watched an interview last night, and I'm going to talk about it maybe next week. I want to watch it a couple times and make sure I'm getting things right. But he's talking about his company, Barefoot Mining, and he's talking about the scarcity of block space and how people are actually going to be able to financialize that in terms of, just like we do with crops, with the futures market. If you need something at a certain date and somebody has that, they can guarantee that they're going to have that at that certain date. You can pay a contract. You set up a contract with them. You fix the price, and that's what he's talking about with what's going to happen with block space. So it's creating a bunch of these different industries. And I think that whatever you do, if you can connect your cart to Bitcoin, you're going to ride the wave of adoption with it. It doesn't matter how big or how small, but as long as you're working on something in Bitcoin right now, you're going to go up with the market, with the adoption. We're going from a very niche industry into taking over the world here. And so if you can ride that train there and be part of that, think about what that's going to do for you. So that's just one example. There's going to be tons more that we can't even fathom yet in our own heads. And the last one here is that it's going to subsidize your electricity costs. So we've been talking about free energy. We've been talking about John G. Trump and having access to Nikola Tesla's information. I don't know how long that's going to take, but in the meantime, subsidize your electricity costs. Think about this. In the current system we live in, we have here in Canada, we have a furnace in the basement. The furnace takes energy in, turns it into heat. We pay for that. It goes through the vents, it heats your house. You don't freeze to death. If you hook that up to a Bitcoin miner instead of the furnace, it's still providing heat. It's going to heat your house, except now it's running. You've converted that energy not just to be into the furnace and into the air. You've converted that energy into Bitcoin. So let's say you pay $50 a month, or probably $500 a month now, $500 a month to heat your house. If you set that up properly, and let's say you're mining Bitcoin with that, you get half of that back in Bitcoin. Plus, that's going to continue to grow over time in a non-KYC fashion. Like, it's a no-brainer for people. We're just not there yet. People aren't aware that this exists now. But that very simple example of having a furnace that just takes your money versus a Bitcoin miner that converts your money into heat and Bitcoin. I kind of say these things with a little bit of a sarcastic tone because it just seems so obvious to me. And the unfortunate part is that, 99% of people are so unaware of this, what's happening here. But that's opportunity for us. That's why we're doing the show. That's why you're here watching. And I mean, we're sitting pretty. So I guess just to kind of wrap this up. Holy. Just to kind of wrap this up for today. I think that just think about all this stuff. We're moving into a completely different system here. And you really have to, you don't understand this overnight or over even a year, but slowly each day, just start thinking in these terms and understand how valuable the asset that you're holding really is, and take steps to protect that. And kind of my final point here on this is that even if Bitcoin only went up with inflation, let's say that it's only us forever. It's only us here in Bitcoin. We're the only ones using it. We're the only ones sending it back and forth. Even if the purchasing power only went up with inflation, it's still far superior to the current system that we have. Far superior to it. And I know that that's not going to happen. I know that it's not going to just, inch up with inflation. We've seen that historically, and into the future will not be any different. But even if Bitcoin only went up with inflation, it's still far superior to the system that we're using now. So don't be too concerned with the price. That's why I didn't do the metrics today. Don't be too concerned about, future price predictions and all this kind of bullshit. We're focused on the system, focus on building in the system, focus on earning Bitcoin, and whatever Bitcoin you've managed to accumulate to this point, make sure that it's protected. Because we don't even understand how valuable this Bitcoin is. This is in caps, the last thing that I had here. You're holding an asset that everyone will want. You are holding an asset that everyone will want. So you compare that to other assets. Think of another asset that everybody will want. Canadian dollars. I'm going to work. I'm saving in Canadian dollars. I have a savings account. Do people in Venezuela want Canadian dollars? Do people in Africa want Canadian dollars? Nope. Oh, my stomach just growled. Must be the no coffee in my stomach right now. Saying, where the hell's the coffee? What about a Babe Ruth rookie card, baseball card? You're holding an asset. Does everybody want that? I'm sure 100% of the people in this chat wouldn't pay for a Babe Ruth baseball card. So smaller market, very smaller market. When you have a small market, you don't get as much for the asset that you're holding. What about land? What if I had land right in front of my property here? Would everybody on earth want that asset? Probably not. It wouldn't do much good to AD. It wouldn't do too much for Craig having a piece of land here. Not everybody wants that. So it's not as valuable. It's not even on the same. You can't compare the two. But with Bitcoin, you're holding an asset that everyone will want globally. Humans, machines, everybody is going to want Bitcoin. So moral of the story, whatever Bitcoin you have, make sure that it's protected. Do not take it for granted.